Hey everyone, happy Thursday and welcome again to Virtual Veg Fest Live with Helene. And this week on this Thursday is April Lang, which we're really excited about because it's been a while since I've seen her. So first, let's take care of a little bit of business. Thank you to Piedmont Farm Animal Refuge for sponsoring this week's lives. And of course, you can go to virtualvegfest.com to watch these and to shop and support our vendors and the Plant-Based Network and Virtual Veg Fest, which in turn helps Triangle Veg Fest and Veg Fest Expos, because Triangle Veg Fest is the nonprofit behind all of this, as well as Plant-Based Network. So if you are watching, please let us know that you're here. Please ask any questions, interact with us. We'd love to have you be part of this talk because it's a really important one this week. Not that all of them aren't, but this one for mental health, which is incredibly important. So what are we going to talk about? What are we talking about? April wrote to me, I think in 2017, to say, hey, I wrote a book. And I would like to come and speak at your event, the Triangle Veg Fest in Durham, North Carolina. And of course, I was like, well, who are you? What did you do? And she wrote this book. And one of the most important things, the thing that grabbed me, was that so many people in the vegan community are activists and they burn out. And they go to the vigils and they see the animals that are just about to die. And then it just wears and wears on them mentally and physically. And she's written a book and she's a psychotherapist. And she's in New York. And she wrote a book that said, hey, let's talk about not burning out is pretty much what it is. Let's talk about how you can work on your mental health and still do the things that we do in the course of living this vegan, plant-based world, and especially for the activists. And then we can top that by saying, hey, let's put a pandemic on, in addition to, because people are still doing their activism, and now there's a pandemic, and then you were told to stay home. And of course, she's in New York, so she's the epicenter of COVID. I mean, there's a lot of things to unpack there. But I know a lot of people wanted. The reason why this started was Dan Turbert wrote to me to say, hey, I'm feeling depressed. And Dan Turbert is the Sentient Project, and he's local to us, and he was going to be part of this, but he's closing on his house. so he couldn't be here. But he was the inspiration for me reaching out to April to say, hey, you should totally be part of this, because I'd love to have a talk with Dan about how he's like, this has been impacting him. But I'd also like to have someone who's a professional say, well, let's talk about why. Let's go into the whys and the hows and what we can do to be mentally healthy during a pandemic and while you're being a vegan activist. So I'm going to throw this at April. And once again, if you want to ask us questions, please do. I'm going to throw this at April to share more about who she is, and we'll just kind of see where this goes.
Great. Well, thank you, Helene. It's good to see you again. It has been a while, so it's a pleasure, and thanks for inviting me here. So I am, as Helene said, I am a psychotherapist, and I'm in private practice in New York City. And I'm also an animal activist, and I'm a writer. And yes, I wrote a book called Animal Persuasion. And the reason I wrote the book is because I felt that there just weren't enough sources available to people that are activists, that are ethical vegans, to find ways, to come up with ways to help them deal with the stress of being an activist. And, people do burn out, right? And so what do you do? First of all, normalizing the reactions and then coming up with some techniques. And what I did in the book also is that I had interviewed a lot of different, actually I had a lot of people write in, different activists, different ethical vegans, animal rescue people, veterinarians, talking about their experiences and, what they did to cope. So I wanted the book to be, hey, you're not crazy. This is normal. And maybe you can also get some support from some other people out in the world. So that's the book. And also, doing what I'm here is part of this is, and I'm hoping people will, whoever is listening, will reach out and ask me questions. That's really the best way, kind of putting my, wearing my therapist hat to be able to help people, instead of assuming what people need, like having people tell me like, oh, this is an issue. What might you suggest? Or just, what, I want to just talk about this. I don't have a safe place to talk about this. People in my family or people in my community just don't get it, or just not giving me the support that I need. So I'm hoping that will happen here, but we'll see.
I know exactly. I mean, I can definitely steer us in some directions that would probably make sense for a lot of people. And we can start with the fact that everyone has been home and
Mm-hmm.
there's a pandemic out there. And what advice do you give? Because I'm sure you're dealing with it in your own practice. People are not necessarily handling being away from people. I like being away from people. I'm introverted. This is good for me. But I have friends that are extreme extroverts and they are going crazy. I mean, I hate to say crazy because it's not fair. But, but they need people and they don't have them.
They do. People do. Most people do need people. I also do have some clients. And when this first happened, and we had our first remote sessions, and I said, "So how are you doing?" And several of them were like, "Hey, I'm actually okay. I'm an introvert, and I'm happy being, not having minimal interactions with other people." So that was fine for them. But then, as you say, there's plenty of other people out there who feel very, very isolated. I mean, so that's one piece of it. People are feeling very isolated. So one of the things is to find ways, what can we avail ourselves of so that we don't feel so isolated, right? And well, yes, I'm sure tons of people have been on Zoom. Zoom is making a ton of money from all the people going on to Zoom, calls. I use it myself for family and friends. So I think that's a really important thing. The phone is great if you don't have a computer or don't want to be, just to hear somebody, but to be able to see somebody, to see their facial expressions, their body language is really important. So if you're okay with getting on the computer, I say do that. If you're not, do it, be on the phone. And then another piece of it too is, everyone's saying like, oh, don't go out, isolate. Yeah, be smart about it, but it's okay, to go outside wearing your mask 6 feet apart and be able to see somebody. Like I know people that will go, and I've heard this, they'll have meals on their lawn, and then their neighbors, if you have a house, across the yard or on your lawn 6 feet apart, and people will talk to each other, so they feel connected. Or just walking. I know you can be walking around your block and you may run into some neighbors and you have a little communication, something, because we are social beings, even if we're introverted, and we need to be able to connect somehow, even a little bit, and just to feel that we're not alone and that we have, that we can even maybe if it's once a week for some people, somebody that you can talk to and say, hey, I'm feeling kind of down. I'm feeling kind of lonesome. And a lot of people now, especially some of the seniors that I know, one thing that keeps coming out is how lonely they are. They don't have any people. They don't have anyone in their life. They don't have family. They don't have friends. So finding any ways that you can to connect is the first thing, right? But beyond that, it could be a time right now for introspection. What maybe there are some things that you haven't thought about in your life, changes that you want to make. Life will change. Life is changing, it's changing around us anyway. But another piece of all this is us feeling that we don't have control. Life is changing around us, and we're usually, most of us want to feel we have some control over what to us. Oops, was that a kitty knocking things over? Um, so I think being able to say, what in my life can I control now? Maybe what you can control is the time of day that you wake up. Maybe what you can control are the people that you talk to. Maybe what you can control is making a plan as much as one, can. Maybe not for like the next 3 months, but more of a life plan. Like, what do you want to change in your life? So that you have something that you can hang on to and not feel like you're just kind of coasting along, or for some people, the way they express it, kind of drowning in this, morass of nothingness, which is how I had one client express it to me. So those are, the control thing, feeling connected, are two really important things. And then the obvious, the self-care. There are people that are, because liquor stores are an essential business, so there are people that are drinking too much. They're home all the time. There are people that are not getting exercise, so they're gaining weight, or they're getting more unhealthy. They're not taking care of themselves. So what can you start to do now that you can feel better? Are you sleeping too much? Again, get into a routine so that you can maybe not sleep too much. Are you not sleeping enough because you have anxiety? Well, we can talk about some ways of dealing with anxiety. And people, you may have some ways that you deal with anxiety, but are you putting them into place now? You know, do you have a meditation practice and you have not been doing it? Have you worked with, gone to a gym and worked with a trainer and now you can, right? So start, if you can't do the exact same thing, go online and find videos and start to just move. Movement is really important now too. It really, it's calming, gets the endorphins going, and our bodies and our minds need it. So those are just a couple of basic things that I would say, I've been dealing with clients in my practice, people that I know, and information that I'm, some tools that I'm putting out there for them to utilize.
No, that's great. I feel it's important for people to slow down, and having being from New York and having lived in California, Northern California, it forced me to slow down because I was one of those people running a million miles per hour because that's just the nature of where we're from, right?
Sure.
And then Northern California does not work like that. It just doesn't. So I learned, and it was very difficult to slow down. I learned how to be alone. I learned how to pass time without having a lot of people to do things with. And I cherish that because it's really paid off dividends to know that it's almost terrible because I can pass time better than probably anybody. And that means I can just sit and do like literally not much and time just goes by really quickly. So that's what this has been for me, is almost like I need to do more than
Uh-huh.
because I don't do as much when I don't have pressure. I need the pressure of the event dates, of the goals. I'm one of those people. So when I know I have something going on, I need to I work towards it. And I don't have any work towards points because I don't know when those points will be because of the virus.
So you got to
And
find
that
something internal, right? Something internally that can be
yes.
more, I talk about bringing some structure into one's life. If you don't have that external structure or somebody imposing, from the outside a deadline, what do you do?
Right. And I have to do it myself. And I know I do. And I
Yes.
do because I have to still get things done. I'm just not as productive as I want to be. But I'm also talking about a person who I do like a million things. So now I'm just probably doing like normal. And it's not enough in my mind. It's not enough, but I know that I'm getting stuff done. So that's important. I mean, look, I'm doing this and I love this. So
And it's important. And I want one thing I just want to say about what you're talking about, which comes into play for many people is expectations. I cannot tell you how often I deal with that topic. Like you're saying, well, it's like you have to become okay with what you are able to do. And if you load up your list with, 20 things, clearly you're not going to get through 20 things. But if you put on your list 5 things or 3 things, which is more realistic, and you can get through those, then you feel a sense of accomplishment. And I think maybe for a lot of people, not feeling a sense of accomplishment now is an issue too.
that's true because I mean, we're home. And if you're not entrepreneurial, right, if you typically work for someone and need someone to direct you, this would be a very difficult time.
Very difficult time.
Very difficult time. For those of us that are entrepreneurial, we just pivot. And that's the whole reason this even exists is okay, need to go online. Can't do it in person, need to do it online. You need to reach people, need to build, need to help vendors survive. What can we do?
Uh-huh.
And that's how we pivoted, and plant-based network pivoted.
Right.
However, for the people who are, they're still going to the vigils, right? I mean, that's a whole other, I mean, I don't do it because it would be too emotional for me. It is not my type of activism, and I totally appreciate all the people that do go to the vigils and see the animals and pay last respects. And of course, the woman in Canada
Yeah.
who just died
Yep.
because she was at a vigil and the truck. Yeah, it's just awful, right? It's awful to go and see the animals and thankful, thank them and give them love in the few moments, but then to have someone lose their lives because they went to do that is even harder. And
Is
of course, a lot of the activists are mourning for that person because they know, what advice would you give for all of them that one are mourning one of their own, and how to stay healthy while doing that type of work?
right. Well, with mourning, I mean, it's an with any kind of mourning. I mean, you have to find your way of grieving, right? And for some people, that's going to be maybe. And the problem, I will say, with the grieving now, again, we can't really get together. We can't be in a close knit place and say we're going to all, sit around together and talk about this. But you can still talk about it. You can talk about it if you're a bit apart from each other. You can talk about it by getting together on Zoom or some other video platform. I think for a lot of people, that's really important to express how they feel. I mean, what are the whole thing, the whole point of funerals, and one of the points of funerals, wake, Shiva, is that people come together to not only celebrate a life, but to gain support from other people. People, it's like, hey, we know what this is like. We're going through this together. We have a shared experience. So the shared experience of being vegan, being an activist, and somebody who's one of your own, you're losing that person is lost. That person was murdered. Come together, talk about it. If that's what works for you, and then there are other people that it's a more private experience. They want to just reflect on what does that mean that this person lost their life? What does this mean for the movement? What is my part in the movement? What can I do going forward to keep her memory alive and her work active? So I think it's really going to depend on the person. And it is very important also, in which I talked about in my book, and I talk about that in my writing or wherever I talk, is the self-care. And also really honoring, what your limitations. And like what you said, Helene, which is great, that you appreciate and respect, and it's wonderful the people that are doing the vigils, but it's not your kind of activism. And I cannot tell you how many times I've had this conversation with people. It's, be aware of what your personality is, what your temperament is, what your talents are. There's no one type of activism. So, if going to vigils isn't your thing, you do something else. And look, you created, Triangle Veg Fest and this, and you do so much. And that's a wonderful way of being an activist. So I would say for people right now that might be saying, well, what can I do? Because some kinds of activism are limited now too. For the people that might go out and say, well, I go out on streets and I leaflet, and I table. Well, there's no, street, like in New York City, there's no, street fairs that people can go and sit at a table at. You're not going to be standing on street corners and handing leaflets out to people. So is there a way that you can, find another kind of activism, translate what you do into some other sphere? What might that be? Maybe it's not what you're going to end up doing. Maybe it's not what you love, but it's something. Or you may discover that it's something that you like to do, right? So you just going back to you again, being the entrepreneur, this is a time for people like you who are creative, to bring that creativity out, to the forefront. And you created this. So I would say to other people, creativity is not just about art. Creativity is basically just making something happen, coming up with something that wasn't there before, or changing it in some way. So I'd say to somebody, what can you do? What would you like to do? Tap into your creative side. It's not as good as somebody else's. It's yours. What can come from it? So to use this time alone, because we also do need to be able to be alone. So this is an opportunity to be able to get a little better with that, because we can love being around people, but we have to be okay with ourselves. So reflecting by yourself on what do you want to do? When this is over, what kind of an activist do you want to be? what kind of, if you don't have a self-care plan, you don't have a good support network, if you don't, take good care, eat well, sleep well, exercise, have things that will relax you. Well, this is a great time now to implement that, so that, it'll help you now, and it'll also help you for the years to come with all the work that you're going to be doing.
Oh, definitely. And that is also, it's almost a double-edged sword because it's scary to take that time. It's scary to learn that. It's scary to think about what could be or what will be. And I've said on here early on, I've said I have to take every day one day at a time,
Yeah.
which is a really true adage, but it's no truer now than it's ever been, at least for my life,
Uh-huh.
because I don't know what's going to happen. So if I start thinking into the fall, into the winter, into early 2021, I start to get upset.
Why
And
upset? Upset in what way?
because I don't know where income's going to come from, if events will happen, if VegFest will survive. I don't know.
You
But I
don't.
do know that we're surviving now
Hmm.
and we'll keep doing what we're doing now, or I'll keep doing what I'm doing. And with each day, I don't have as many concerns because, okay, I'm okay today. I'll be okay tomorrow. I don't know if I'll be okay in October, but I don't need to think about October right now. I just need to think about getting through today and tomorrow and this week. And to me, that's working for me, for my mental health.
Uh-huh.
Because, as much as I'm a planner, a future person, and they're still in my head, like I still need to think, like I want to do events. I want to do events this year. And I have two that I want to do in Asheville and Nashville.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know if I'll be allowed.
Yeah.
I do know the people in Nashville, the people want to come. They do. I just polled them this week. They
Great.
overwhelmingly want to come to an outdoor event in Nashville, Tennessee. And
Uh-huh.
if I can do it, we'll do it. But, and I'm going to say this because I've been saying it on my personal page, wear a mask, social distance, wash your hands.
Of
And if
course.
you do these things, then you can have a veg fest. It's been pretty much what it is. If you want to be selfish about it, you want to have a fun event where you can actually shop and support the vendors and eat really good food, do those things.
Well,
Because
that's your PSA for this for today.
yes. Because I was like, that's what has to happen. We have to do those things. If you want the good things in life, then you have to do those things in order for like just to have you want to have good stuff. Well, then you have to kind of suffer a little for a little while, and then we can have great stuff again.
And we will, and that's the thing
Yes.
to keep in mind. We will. And to your point about being, present, absolutely. This is this is the life we have today. And I mean, again, I talk about with clients, not about this in this particular subject matter, but in general. Past is gone, right? We can't do anything about that, but we live now, and whatever the choices we make now will impact the future. So in thinking about a future that, as you say, you don't know what it's going to look like, you don't know if you're going to have your event, we don't know so many things, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't, in the back of our minds, just have some ideas, think about it, because we also, humans need to have something to look forward to. Even if we don't know exactly when, we know that we're going to work towards it as soon as we're able to. So it's being able to hold both yeah, there is a future, because if we don't feel that there's light at the end of the tunnel, that all the things we love and we work towards won't happen, it's very hard to motivate yourself and to feel hopeful. So hold that in one hand, in the other hand, but I'm here, like you say, today I can do this. Find your structure, find your purpose for today, whatever that is for you, for anybody else. And then when that's done, the day passes, and you're in the next day and do the same thing. And each day will move you closer to that goal, to whenever that's going to happen. And again, yes, a lot of that's out of our control, but it's better to be prepared with some ideas for when the time comes that we're ready to start up again, instead of like, oh my God, I haven't thought about this. And well, now's the time, right? So you allow yourself to have something exciting in your mind to think about, but also take pleasure and respect the here and now. right? Holding both.
Right. That's excellent advice.
Yeah, I mean,
Excellent.
what else can we do?
It's just it. There is nothing else we can do. And that's where the releasing of control, being a control freak type person,
Uh-huh.
learning, I've said many times, I can't control it. And that's doing these events has been the best lesson for me ever. There's so much you can't control. You just kind of have to just roll. And that's really good for me because that's lessons I needed to learn. And that's for everyone else. Can't control a pandemic, right? We can only control our behaviors while we're living through it.
100% true.
Yep.
All we can control is our behavior.
Yep. Exactly. Can't even control the other people around you or
So,
the animals.
as much as we might, want to try to do that, it's not going to happen. So,
Right. Oops. Uh-oh, we lost her. I love when that happens. So I'll do a little PSA for like what's coming up on Saturday is Karen Ramsey, and she is our raw person, and she's going to talk about being a healthy raw vegan and raising children. And then I don't know, next week after July 4th, July 5th, we're going to have Honey LeBronx as Ben on. And then next Thursday, I'm pretty sure we're having a cookie demo with Shoba, and she's out of Atlanta. So that'll be pretty cool. And let's see what else I can say. It's not normally just me, so it's easier for me to talk with somebody, and hopefully she'll come back sooner than later, and that she didn't completely lose her internet. But if anyone has any questions, please feel free to write them and say hello. Let me know that you're there because I see that some of the people I know have been watching, like Jennifer and Deborah, Elizabeth and Gina and Rachel and Caitlin Marks. Here she comes. So thank you for watching. There you are.
I have no idea what happened. That's never happened in any platform that I've been on. So I had to get out of it and then totally come back in again.
That's okay because I did a whole little PSA about what the future is for what I'm doing.
I heard
Oh, you heard? Oh, okay. I've had
heard
that
you.
happen. I've had that happen to me. So, okay. Hey, Elizabeth. Thank you. I'm glad you're here.
All right.
It's really cool. So I shouted a little shout out to the people I know that have been watching.
No, I think it's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go into your book. Let's
Okay.
talk about your book for a little bit
Sure.
and like your inspiration for writing it, which we kind of touched on, but go into that a little bit more and a little bit more about what the book is about.
Yeah. So, again, the inspiration was that at the time I hadn't found any books. I'm not saying they weren't out there, but I hadn't found any books that really were going to speak to vegans and animal activists about how to handle what goes on, emotionally for them, being subjected to, a world of institutionalized animal abuse. So I said, well, gee, maybe I can just put something together that, from a therapeutic standpoint, that would be helpful to them. So I did that, and then as I went along, and I didn't start thinking about interviewing other people, but then as I was writing it and I started to think a little bit more about it, I said, wouldn't it be really cool to get the perspective of some other folks? I was also just interested too. I mean, yes, I thought readers would like it, but I thought, oh, I'm kind of why not, give something to myself. So so I did reach out to people, and I reached all over the place, and I different states, different countries, and it was wonderful to get the people that wanted to participate, that wanted to have a voice. They wanted to be heard themselves, and they also wanted to offer support to other people. And there was also a piece of it where I wanted not just for techniques for people, but I also wanted people that might not be vegans or activists to maybe read the stories. Some of them are very gut-wrenching stories about people's experiences with institutionalized animal abuse from some of the rescuers or people that, there was a woman who was she compiled the videos that people took from the undercover investigations at the factory farms and slaughterhouses. So to be able to have other people from the outside, and I don't know if they read it or not, but to learn something Like, oh, here, because a lot of times people like to read other people's stories. It's like, okay, so and so went through this. So maybe some of the takeaway would be like, oh, I didn't know this about why people are vegans. I didn't know this kind of abuse goes on. I didn't know people, um, do this kind of activism. I didn't understand what ethical veganism was. So that was a piece of it. That was more that wasn't the major piece, but that was a component of it, right? It was mostly for the community to have a source of some techniques and some support and to feel validated. That was very important to me because a lot of times I find that, with clients that I've worked with, they'll feel that they are not validated by their families, by their communities. And, like I'm crazy. People think I'm crazy. They don't understand me. And I want people to know that, no, you're not crazy. And there's plenty of other people out there like you that think this way and are working towards the same goals that you are. So that was pretty much how the book came into being.
No, that's great. And I know that at the Veg Fest, you did a talk and then you did like a little round table on Sunday upstairs,
Uh-huh.
right? Which was,
The
I
support
felt,
group. Yeah, it was a
yeah,
support group
yep,
essentially, which I wanted to open it up to people to just, whatever was going to come out, express whatever feelings they have, ask any questions, not just of me, but of each other.
right. Because when you leave, they're still left with one another. And since you've been here, there's been more fraction in our community, which has been a whole other thing. But
In your
that's
community,
okay.
in
Yeah,
North
in our
Carolina?
community, we're just kind of like normal. It just seems to be the normal for most vegan communities in most states and most cities that there's different factions, and some that get along, don't get along. It just the nature of human beings is we just can't seem to get along with one another, even though we have the same end goal. That's incredibly interesting to me. Is we all have the same goal where we want to reach. We want to make it so that the animals aren't harmed and people are healthy by eating a plant-based vegan diet, and we save the planet. It's three very lofty, amazing goals done by very strong-minded people.
Well, but the problem, and which is what happens in lots of, not just where you live, but just in, different animal rights communities all over the place, is yes, people have that goal, the overarching goal, we're in it for the animals, but, human beings being as they are, there's also people want power. People have their idea, and the power a lot of times is, I want to tell other people what to do, or I have the vision and my vision is the right vision. And, I don't like the way you approach something. So therefore, I'm going to put you down because if you don't do it my way, then this is not going to get accomplished. When it's just the reality is we all have, if we keep that goal in mind, what we want, there's room to have different approaches, right? I mean, it's better to find a way to have peace with each other, to find where there's a mutuality as opposed to differences, because we can always find differences, different people,
Yes.
right? Different ways of doing things, and that will never change. But there isn't, and some people may disagree with me on this, but it's my belief. Maybe that's formed from my, therapeutic background, but there is no one way of accomplishing something. There's no right way. There's just another way. And that way may actually work in one situation and may not work in another, and somebody else's may work in that one. And that's fine. So allow room for all of it, because there's a lot of creative people in the movement.
Yes.
It's the power thing, that like I have to be right. That's gonna corrode, as it is in a lot of ways, a lot of times, the good work that people are doing.
Right. And it's the human nature is they just want to put people down. And if you see someone being successful, it seems to be human nature to want to pull them down, because a lot of people in this movement have internal issues. They have internal struggles, right? And that tends to come out in whatever their activism is.
Yes.
And that also leads towards, oh, look at what that person's doing. no, let's pull him or her down a couple of notches because for some reason they might think that person's head's getting too big or whatever their feelings or perceptions are that could be completely wrong, or maybe it could be completely right. We don't know. There go the dogs. So
Hi, doggy. But
I
it's
know
but
the
it's
control.
also people, I think, going back to that, that sense of power, like if, and also if you pull somebody down, I mean, this is what we're going through with, the with racism and, all the Me Too movement. It's like, well, okay, if I pull you down, then that means that I'm elevated. So I need to be elevated. So what can I do to feel okay? All right, well, if I put you below me, then you're below me. So that feels good. But you're right, people have a lot of their own issues. I mean, that's in everything, right? And of course that comes into play in, you know, when you're working with other people. We can't always, we're not always playing nice with each other. And also another reality too is a lot of animal activists, a lot of ethical vegans, or I'll say more maybe activists. I'll venture to say have a lot or have a lot are very wounded people in a lot of ways. You know, I mean, there's something. Not everybody, never generalize, but a lot of people, and their wounds, what they went through, makes them in a lot of situations able to feel for the non-human animals. But then they get triggered too when they see the abuses happen, and how they get triggered gets played out in all different ways. Right. That's a big piece of it.
Yes, very
I
much so.
I know. As I'm looking at you as I'm saying that, something's resonating, I think.
No, it's there's a. I mean, it's not like I haven't had my fair share of drama doing what I'm doing, right? So, and I know we're both choosing our words extremely carefully because that's part of it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that is part of it. So, and it's hard. It's not the easiest thing when you get pretty much dragged through the mud in a in public, because of holding your ground. One of my things is I'm going to hold my ground. And what I've learned is that when you hold your ground, when you stand up for yourself, especially as a female, you stand up for yourself, for some reason, people get really defensive on the other end. And they get defensive because I'm standing up for myself and saying, "No, I'm right in this right now. You're trying to take advantage of me and I'm saying no."
Yeah, you're
And
putting
that
boundaries in place, right?
Yes, and that makes people very, very uncomfortable. And it's amusing to me because I've seen it multiple times. And I've saw the pattern. It's when I stand up for myself. And it's like, look, you're not gonna gaslight me. And you're not going to like tell me that I'm not handling this situation in a way that is the healthiest for me because that's not okay. And it's incredibly interesting because if you don't know this, I have a master's in education and school counseling. So I don't come at this as like knowing nothing. I come at this going, well, this is kind of amusing because I'm not going to stop standing up for myself,
Of course not.
but I'm going to let you know that your behavior on the other side is unacceptable and I'm not going to put up with it. And that is really difficult to do for most people. And I mean, I'm 50 years old, so I couldn't have done that at 20. Never. Hey, Cheryl, thanks for joining us. Never. I've done that at 20 years old, 25 years old, probably not 30 years old, probably at least into my 40s. That's a big deal.
It's
So
a very big deal.
for people watching, it's not a bad thing to stand up for yourself. And, if something doesn't feel right, to say that doesn't feel right. Now, you can still be wrong, even though it feels right. That we understand. But, you can also have a conversation about it with whomever you're speaking to and talk it through instead of screaming it through.
Well, of course, because the screaming accomplishes nothing. It's
Yep.
understandable why somebody's getting activated, okay, but it's not going to accomplish anything. But your point, it's a great point about standing up for oneself, having being able to have boundaries and to say, this is, having integrity, both, bodily, like this is my body and don't, transgress, is that piece of it. And then there's just psychically, intellectually. I know myself, I know this is who I am, and I have a right to say what I want I have a right to feel whatever I want to feel. We don't have a right to go squash somebody, to put them down, to attack them, to annihilate them. We don't have a right to do that. But we have a right to say, you know what? I feel this is important. I need to stand up for myself, or I feel that you're not respecting my boundary in some way. And hopefully have some kind of a dialogue from that. And it is a great lesson. And sometimes it doesn't happen, unfortunately, till people get older.
Yeah.
And again, that can come from their backgrounds, right? That they never, as a child, they never had an opportunity, or they were never allowed to put up a boundary and say, no, stop.
That's
Whatever
true.
that meant, stop, no.
Right. And that leads to like another, like something that's really applicable to right now
Uh-huh.
is responding to people on social media.
Oh, God. Social media, the bane of everyone's existence these days, or
It's
many
like
people's.
trigger point, trigger point.
So true.
I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'm calling out the racists and the bigots, and supporting Black Lives Matter. That is not a surprise to anyone watching or listening right now. So, but I do it on my personal page, and I've blocked and removed people a lot in the last month because
Mhm.
people I had no idea that they felt the way they do, and I said, enough, no, enough. I can't deal with you. I can't deal with you not believing that all people, you know, that that you don't believe that people of color should have the same rights is the best way to say that, right?
Right.
And to live without oppression on this planet. So in this country, and then you got COVID and you got masks and you had so much stuff that you go, and then it's right in front of you, day in, day out, on your social media feed, and responding to people, calling them out, it's not an easy thing, or getting called out if you're on the receiving end
But it's
of
a
being called
choice
out.
too, how much we're going to be on social media and how much we engage with people. Because there's also going to be people, because it's an anonymous platform. I mean, you can be like, it could be somebody who's my quote unquote friend who I don't even know who they are, and we're going to get into an exchange, or people that you happen to know, or family members. How much do we want to be on social media? Because I know that certainly for a lot of my clients, we've had to have the discussion about, what, it's overwhelming to be on it all the time, like watching the news all the time. So that's another, I'll just kind of backtrack, self-care technique that I'll say to people. It's not nothing brilliant, but it's just limit the amount of social media, because you have to decide, do you want to engage with these kind of discussions? Do you think you're going to change somebody's mind? Now, we hope that we have a conversation. I mean, we talk, we hope that what we say is going to make a difference. And there are times it does. But when we start to feel that you're going back and forth and somebody is just standing their ground and they're not open to hearing another perspective, that's the time to kind of let it go. And again, deciding with boundaries, do you want those people? Do you want that energy even in your virtual life, by having them, you know, in your on your friend list, or being able to speak with you? We have to protect ourselves.
Yes.
Not always the best forum for to get into heavy duty discussions on Facebook or any kind of social media. Personally, that's my opinion. I try to avoid getting into heavy discussions because I don't think it's the best place, best use of my time.
Right. Right. And plus, like, your whole day is working through other people's problems.
Well, right.
So why go
Exactly.
onto social media and like work through other people's problems? It's like, well, no, you should pay me for this.
Exactly. You can't pay me enough to work through some of those problems. I think no. Therein lies my the boundaries that I need to put into place.
Right, exactly. Whereas, I yeah, I try to be vocal. But at the same time, my best advice to people when it comes to social media is when you type something, especially when you're doing the pound, pound, pound typing, is just to take a breath and read what you wrote
Yeah,
and see if like you want to, would you be okay receiving that? And
that's
if
great.
not, don't type it. You the best thing about social media as opposed to person to person talking, right? In live talking, there's what don't do it. So is that when you're doing this, you
Hmm.
could say the wrong thing relatively easily because your mind and your mouth, you're just going, it's like, oh, but I just had word vomit, and you can't take that back and go look, but you can say, wait, let me stop and rephrase that.
Yes. So,
Oh, but right, but when you're typing, you can take all the time in the world. There's no time frame for when you need to respond to a post on social media. It could be an hour later. But just read what you wrote. There they go.
Helene, that is a great lesson for people, and that, I mean, that applies for social media or for anything else. When we are very activated about something, that's not the time for us to be trying to get through to somebody else. It's not the time that we're going to really be able to speak eloquently, right? So that's a time to say, oh, I'm feeling, all riled up. Go take a break. So be it on social media, like, oh, I'm pissed and I'm writing this. Take a moment to not hit send. But people have to be reminded of that, because usually I find that, when somebody's in that state, unless they learn to recognize when they're in that state and what to do, how to go, okay, I know I need to calm down. What are my ways of calming down? I'm going to do them. It's much, people don't do that. It's hit send and it feels good because you got it out there. But then, the ramifications of that come back, to haunt you later.
Right. Like I almost sometimes I see that there's a response to something I've written and I get nervous. And I'm not a nervous person, but I'm kind of like, uh oh, I don't know what they're going to say.
You
In
don't know.
regards, you don't. And, I mean, I've gotten into a family. So, I mean, I've been blocked. But I mean,
What'd you
you,
say? You got into a
I
family?
got into a family, like a family member, and I was blocked after that. But I don't feel bad about it at all because I saw racism, and I was like, how do you? What makes you think this is okay to do this? So I don't go like, what's wrong with you? I just kind of said, this is racist. Like, what? I think better of the people, I guess is what it is. Is I think you're better than that, and then you're showing me that you're not, and I go, I'm so disappointed. So disappointed.
Nobody wants to hear that, right?
Right, but I mean, I'm saying it in my head. I don't
You're like,
necessarily
look at
say
that.
it, yeah, to like the person. I mean, sometimes I'm like, some people it's actually shocking. I mean, we can talk about this for like ever. I mean, they're on a social media platform right now, hoping people will watch it, right? But
Yeah,
we ask for comments or interaction, and it could be bad. It doesn't mean that it's always going to be good. It hasn't happened yet where it's been like negative, attacking, but it could happen.
right.
So
Got to be prepared for that. That's going to
yes,
happen, and then you deal with it. If and when it occurs. But it's also opening yourself up for that. And I think each person has to decide for themselves if they feel that they're okay opening themselves up to that. Some people don't. Doesn't mean that there are people that might not want to work towards a cause and have strong feelings about it, but they just may not be able to, or feel that they want to engage with other people in the social, on social media. They don't want to get into those arguments. They'd rather, have a more measured discussion somewhere like off social media.
right, not so public and not
Yeah.
so personal at times, but it's still, I yeah, I go right at it. You feel so strong about your convictions,
Yes.
and for some people, if you feel strong enough, you go and you go at it. And to go back to one point that you made in regards to activism and the different ways that you can do it, that's 100% right, because DXC, the Cube, events, vigils, leafleting, visiting college campuses, public speaking, all of that are
Humane,
different ways.
education, which you do.
Right, the humane education. I don't do it anymore, but that's something that
Did
you
you?
do. right?
Well,
You mean,
when I could, I mean, it's
right.
now I can't go into any schools, but I do it, whenever I'm able to get into a school. I love it. But that's just another way
Yes.
of activism as you're talking about.
Right. All different for all different people. And that's all right. Because I never put down, it's not my thing. Like a lot of those are not my thing, but that's okay because what I do is a lot of people wouldn't want to do ever.
Yeah, of course.
So, and that's why we all as a community come together to move forward with changing the world. And one of the ways we're seeing that change, which is absolutely incredible, is the amount of plant-based and vegan food
Oh,
that's at our fingertips.
I know. I love it.
It's remarkable. And never ever. I mean, who thought? And I'm bet a lot of you are thinking, who thought that Burger King and all these restaurants would have, you know, vegan burgers on their menus, vegan
Never.
sausages? Never.
Dunkin' Donuts and Beyond Sausage.
Right? Kentucky Fried Chicken with the Beyond Chicken. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
there's never. I mean, especially when if you do this long enough, like, in and out, like vegetarian veganism over 30 years, you go, what world are we living in? It's a great world.
It is a great
Still,
world.
I mean, and we can only do better from here because as you look at Beyond and Impossible, they're saying things like the meat industry will be over in 15 years. I mean, how incredible would that be?
I
If the less animals that can be destroyed, the better the planet will be. I mean, look at the environment from people staying home.
Oh, I know. I know. No, not having the cars on the road, the air is
Yep.
cleaner, and not people dumping stuff into the rivers and the streams. 100% true. I mean, just creating that awareness. And I would just say that, to your point about all the changes. And I don't know if your viewers know this, but there's a vegan ETF, exchange traded fund, right? Which is wonderful. So you can invest in a fund which is completely vegan,
Oh,
right? And I just when that came about, that took a while for that to happen, but it went live in when did it go live? I guess it was the winter or last fall or something. I can't even remember. But that's a big deal too for people that want to invest.
that's a great thing to know. Plus, it triggers me to go and get some of my vegan investor friends onto the live. So
There you go.
that would be a great talk as well to segue into that. I'm going to work on that after we're done this week
Yes.
and
Yeah.
get that set up because I'm booked through July. I'm booking August now. So that'll be like in August, but that's a great idea. Thank you.
Good. And I can send you after. Maybe you can share with your community what the fund is.
Oh, definitely.
Right? So
Definitely,
out
definitely.
there in case anybody wants to invest. I mean, hey, why not make it grow?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely interested. So please share that with
Oh,
us, and even in the comments, that would be great. So anyone watching to get to this point, they can like see it in the comments.
right.
So yeah, thank you for that.
Of
So
course.
April, this has been absolutely amazing. I mean, I loved you when I met you the first time, and even though the years have gone by, it hasn't changed. Me wanting to know you better than I
Oh,
actually know you. And so after this is all said and done, you should come to other events.
I would love to.
I would
I
love to
loved
have
hanging
you.
out with you. It was so fun. I mean, you're just so delightful, so smart,
Thank you.
and this was such a joy to do this. I
Yeah,
have
no, this is great. Thank you to everyone who's watched and been part of our therapy session. Because it's great for me to talk about stuff, and I don't normally do as much talking on this as the other person, so it's good to be able to share and talk more than just listening. So thank you to everyone who got to hear that. And then if anyone wants to buy your book or find you or hire you for some counseling sessions, because you can do it virtually, tell them how to find you.
Yeah, so you can my website is aprillang.com, and also if you go to, and I do not just work, I do work with lots of different people, but I also work with ethical vegans and activists and people that have lost their animal family members. So if you go to the page, I have a page called vegan with a question mark, like, are you vegan? Okay, click there, and then on the bottom there's going to be a link to talks that I've given, my articles that I've written, podcasts I've been on. So you can learn more about me. The book can be found on Amazon. It's called Animal Persuasion, a guide for ethical vegans and animal advocates in managing life's emotional challenges. But if you just type in Animal Persuasion, and it's, what is it? I think it's $7. It's a paperback with a wonderful cover, which I did not do. And I think, hopefully it might help some people. So that's pretty much how to contact me.
No, that's great. I'm writing your
Yeah.
in the comments the animal persuasion so people will know what to go look for. That'll show up in a second. There it
And,
goes.
and the fund is what is it? It's beyond it's vegan beyond investors. I think that's what it's called. And what I want to do is I want to just look it up so that I can send it to you and then you can put it out. I don't want to put the wrong information here. And people look it up and they're like, well, she said this and I can't find it. So, because it just out of my head exactly what it is. And I think
no, that's perfect. And we definitely can highlight that on the social media for people who are interested. And I can put that in the notes of this talk on YouTube. So
wonderful.
This is great. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us and everyone for watching. And you can rewatch this and all the other talks on the Virtual Veg Fest YouTube channel and on virtualvegfest.com. So please go and shop and support our vendors. And as I typically say when we finish this, please wear a mask and put it over your whole face, and not just part of it. And of course, social distance and wash your hands and help us to get through this so that I can see everyone in person and actually hug you sooner rather than later, because that was something that for most of the people watching, I would love to do.
And I think, and that's good to end with a PSA. And I just did want to say that if people did want to go to my website and they did want to contact me, they could just email me at April Lang. Well, it's my, I'm sorry, aprillang@gmail.com. But you can find that through my website too.
All right, easy enough. That's great. And highly suggest, I think it would be great if anyone is, having trouble and difficulties at any time, not just during a pandemic, that it's really important to talk with somebody, whomever that is. Find someone to talk to, because you know what? You are never, ever, ever alone.
Very
ever.
True. Very true. And find a therapist, whether a vegan therapist or not. There are vegan therapists in a lot of different places also. Everybody will be working, I believe I guess most people are still working remotely. So it really doesn't matter where you live, you find somebody that you like.
Yes, exactly. That's important. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody. And again, we'll see everyone on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for Karen Ramsey, especially if you're interested in raw food and you're interested in raising children on a raw diet. You definitely want to tune in for that talk as well. So everyone, I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Have a good day.
See
Bye.
Ya. Bye.